Okay. Another question I want to get to on attack on life is prenatal exposure to SSRIs. As you know, I was on the FDA panel hearing for SSRIs crazy. For pregnancy.
Yeah.
I think it's well-known effect on developing babies, especially in the first trimester. And there was a level of darkness to some of the presentations and to the media coverage afterwards, because what they basically want to say is there's this disease called depression, and that is what would account for any negative effects to the developing baby, and therefore you need to take an SSRI to prevent that disease from emerging. Tell us what you know about prenatal exposure, SSRI use for pregnant
I don't
women.
know a whole lot, but when I saw that, I had an immediate reaction, which is the greatest expression of the serotonin transporter is the placenta. And so, why is it there? Well, clearly to get serotonin across the placenta. And if you're on an SSRI, you're blocking it. So whatever the importance of serotonin is to the development of the baby, which is obviously very important if the placenta has the highest expression of the serotonin transporter in the body. And so you're interfering with the serotonin doing that. This just goes to show you how dumb the discourse is that everyone thinks that SSRIs boost serotonin or something like that. Like it's one thing for a random person on the street to say that, but the fact that doctors and research scientists think that SSRIs are serotonin boosting drugs is it speaks to how pathetic the state of science within medicine, psychiatry, and pharmacology is. Like, it's really bad.
Yeah, I think in reading your article, you were very clear about some things. I want to make sure I get it accurately. You mentioned that. Give me 1 second here. That SRIs actually deplete serotonin by 14-fold, while they claim to increase it. Like, how is this possible that the entire medical establishment has it backwards?
In the blood. I think it's, the problem is that the problem is that pharma hijacked SSRI science and fundamentally perverted it. So, I mean, that's the story. Serotonin science has become the marketing arm of SSRI sales. And so it's like, would you get your information about something primarily from the sales and marketing department of some company that's selling something? You would think no, like there's probably better information, but the research literature since 1986 on serotonin essentially is the sales and marketing department of the SSRI, the SSRI sales and marketing department of pharma. So I think that's part of it. The other is that doctors, present company excluded, but doctors are generally not, you're not selecting for the same types of people that you would for a research scientist who want to understand all the details of something. In general, doctors are split between people who are very good at relating to their patients and care about them a lot, and then people who are like really good at making protocols and managing society. And so you have, that first type mostly deals with the patients, and that other type controls them by making, going into the bureaucratic positions that control everything. And then most doctors also, they don't have that much time, especially if they're working in this standard model. And so the main thought process that they have is like, how do I get my patient to understand this and to comply with what I'm telling them? And that leads them to very much like simplifying things. And I've been a teacher, so I also like simplifying things, but I've always been more of a research scientist than I've been a teacher. And so the, wanting to understand all the details wins out. But it's, if, and and most doctors have no idea what info they're getting from pharma either. There was a study that was done like 10 or 20 years ago, and it asked doctors a bunch of questions and then asked them where they heard it. And they identified like 80% of the stuff that they were saying could not be found in the scientific literature, and it could be found in the pharma marketing literature, but the doctors thought they were getting it from science papers. And everything has changed since the internet, but when I was first in grad school, my first assignment in a like intro to the program thing was to go get a journal out of the library and look at it and report what we found. And I was stunned to see that New England Journal of Medicine reminded me of Flex that I used to read when I would do my cardio when I was warming up in the gym, and where it was like Flex would have what looked like an article, but it was really like a 3-page ad for some kind of fat burning supplement. And, but it would look like an article. And so New England Journal of Medicine would have these 3-page pharma ads. And the only difference in that allowed you to tell was that the color of the logo was different at the top of the page. It otherwise looked exactly like the journal article. And it's just inside, so if you imagine a doctor who like was in their prime 30 years ago, there's an entire generation that just like, doctors like 20 years ago, doctors didn't go on PubMed and search for things as much as they had a favorite journal in their office where they had, all the NEJM or like all the Lancet or whatever, and they actually physically read things. And so you have this, I think the internet is breaking it free right now, but you have this persistent, like the last 3 generations of doctors who are the ones who trained the ones who are in their prime now, grew up on this like total inability to tell the difference between pharma and science because pharma paid science to make it so you couldn't tell the difference, And so I do think it's getting better. And as it's getting better, the cohesion of the standard model is falling apart. We're watching it happen right now. And that is thanks to the internet. And that is thanks to the blowback against the COVID censorship and all that stuff. But I think it's just most doctors are just trying to help their patients, and they're just trying to communicate in ways that help their patients, and they're hearing most stuff come down from pharma and they can't really tell the difference. And then, the people doing like researchers tend to stay in their own niche, and the ones working on pharma mostly work for pharma. And so you don't have a good system where there's uninterested parties that are trying to understand the truth of SSRIs. You have we're moving towards that now, but I think that's what's going on.